What's up guys? There are a lot of builds in Elden Ring. Some of them are good, some are not. Today I am talking about the 5 most fun and powerful builds in Elden Ring. First is a Strength Faith build. There are so many fun weapons you can use in a Strength Faith build. Some of my favorites are the Blasphemous Blade, the Magma Blades, the Godslayer's Greatsword, and the Envoy's Longhorn. This is just a few of the amazing options you have with a Strength Faith build. The Blasphemous Blade is a super good weapon with a great Ash of War. The Ash of War does an insane amount of fire damage and heals 30% of your health on every hit. I use Alexander's Shard and the Fire Scorpion Charm to buff it, as well as the Fire Crack Tear and Flame grant me strength. The Magma Blades are another excellent option that use the same buffs. The only problem is the farming for them. Another great weapon is the Godslayer's Greatsword. However, this weapon scales better with dexterity than strength. The Ash of War on this weapon is incredibly powerful, and it uses the same buffs as the Blasphemous Blade and the Magma Blades. The Envoy's Longhorn is another great Strength Faith weapon. The Ash of War can absolutely melt anything, even bosses like Elden Beast that have 80% holy resistance. The Ash of War can be buffed by Holy Scorpion Charm, Alexander's Shard, and the Holy Crack Tear. Also, the Ordova's Greatsword is a great Strength Faith weapon. The Ash of War on this weapon does insanely high poise damage when it's fully charged. Alexander's Shard, the Holy Scorpion Charm, Holy Crack Tear, and Godfrey's Icon make this thing do crazy damage. There are way more great choices for a Strength Faith build like the Magma Worm's Scale Sword, the Golden Halberd, the McQuillan Knight's Sword, Marika's Hammer, and many more. Next is an Intelligence build. With an Intelligence build, you have powerful ranged options and great melee weapons too. The best intelligence weapon and one of the best weapons in the game is the Dark Moon Greatsword. The Dark Moon Greatsword not only does incredibly high magic damage even without buffs but also does frostbite buildup. And it has ranged attacks. Luzat's staff has the best scaling at 80 intelligence and it boosts the damage of all sorceries, but it does also increase the amount of FP used. If you don't have much FP or you can't afford to have too many blue flasks, then the Carrion Regal Scepter is the next best option. Some great melee spells to use are the 3 Carrion Sword spells and Agila's Moonblade. Night Comet is my go-to ranged spell because it is decently quick and enemies cannot dodge it. Terra Magica is another great spell to buff magic damage. Any infusible weapon with the magic affinity can be a good choice too. The Death's Poker is also a great weapon for intelligence builds even though it scales better with dexterity than intelligence. The skill on the Death's Poker scales with intelligence instead of dexterity. The Ash of War can do amazing damage and frostbite buildup. There is so much fun to be had experimenting with all of the different spells and swords and Ashes of War you can use with an intelligence build. Third is a Strength build. Strength builds are super fun if you like using huge weapons to bonk enemies. There are so many weapons you can use in a Strength build. First is the Giant Crusher. The Giant Crusher is one of the heaviest weapons in the game, and it requires 60 strength to use. It is a huge colossal weapon with a unique heavy attack. With Royal Knight's Resolve on this thing, you will be unstoppable. Lion's Claw and Cragblade are also good options to use with the Giant Crusher. On the other hand, the Star Fist is also a fantastic strength weapon despite its size. This thing has incredibly fast heavy attacks that do surprisingly good damage for being a fist weapon. Royal Knight's Resolve or Cragblade are great options for Ashes of War to use on this weapon. This weapon also has bleed, but the main focus is the charged attacks. The enemy will already be dead before they can bleed if you use the charged attacks with the Axe Talisman, the charged attack Crack Tear, and the Ritual Sword Talisman.
Other great strength weapons are the Iron Cleaver, the Rusted Anchor, the Omen Killer Cleaver, and of course, the Greatsword.
The Iron Cleaver has very fast attacks. The Rusted Anchor and the Omen Cleaver can be dual-wielded. You can also use 2 Omen Cleavers for more bleed damage, and you can use the pickaxe with the Rusted Anchor for 100% pierce damage. In New Game Plus, you can use 2 Rusted Anchors. Of course, there is also the Greatsword. This thing does insane damage. You can pair it with the Axe Talisman for powerful charged attacks, or use Alexander's Shard and a great Ash of War like Lion's Claw or Giant Hunt. Those are just some of the amazing weapons of a strength build. Second is a dex build. Dexterity builds are the opposite of strength builds. They are all about small weapons and quick attacks. The Nagakiba is a great dexterity weapon. It is super long and it is a katana, so it has bleed damage. You can dual wield this with an Uchigatana on your first playthrough, but on New Game Plus you can use 2 Nagakibas. The Bloodhound's Fang is also a super good dexterity weapon. The Ash of War can melt bosses super easily, as you see me doing to Radon. Another great dexterity weapon you can dual wield is the Cross Naginata. Unfortunately, you can only get 1 per playthrough, but the Spiked Spear is a good alternative to dual wield. These weapons together cause insane damage and bleed buildup. The Bolt of Grandsax is another insane dex weapon. This power stance with a Lightning Affinity Cross Naginata is super overpowered. The skill on this spear does a crazy amount of lightning damage which not many enemies are resistant to. Alexander's Shard, the Lightning Scorpion Charm, and the Lightning Crack Tier all make this weapon do an insane amount of damage. Finally, we have an Arcane build. An Arcane build is one of, if not the best build in the game. This build is super fun because of the awesome dragon spells. With an Arcane build you want to have a little bit of faith to use the dragon spells and some other good utility spells like Lightning Spear. Golden Vow is also a good spell to have, and it only requires 25 faith. 25 faith is a good point to reach because you can use plenty of good spells like Golden Vow, the dragon spells, and Lightning Spear. The seal we will be using is the Dragon Communion Seal. This seal has an S scaling in Arcane and AB in Faith. We can get really good scaling if we go mostly into Arcane and a little bit of our stats into Faith. This seal also boosts dragon spells, which are the main offensive spells we are using. With an Arcane build, you also have access to many powerful weapons like the Reduvia Dagger. The Reduvia scales with Arcane and has a great weapon art. The skill can trigger blood loss on enemies super quickly, and it doesn't take health like it does on regular weapons, which means we can use Ritual Sword Talisman with it. Still, sometimes the skill can be outperformed by putting it onto an Occult Scavenger's Curved Sword or other weapon. The Scavenger's Curved Sword can be power stanced for a ton of bleed buildup. 2 Scavenger's Curved Swords combined with the Bloodblade Ash of War, and your enemies will bleed in no time. Finally, how could I forget about Mogwin's Spear? This is a top 10 weapon in PvE. It can cause blood loss insanely quickly. It does require a little bit of strength and dexterity to wield, but still this weapon is so good. It can stun lock Melania for an easy victory. Mogwin's Spear also has base blood loss buildup on its attacks, and it is a great spear, so it has a good move set. This weapon can be buffed by Alexander's Shard for an even more powerful attack. That just about wraps up the 5 builds. I hope to see you all having lots of fun in the lands between with these 5 powerful setups. Anyway, please subscribe for more Elden Ring and Dark Souls content. Thanks for watching.